Well, hello, friends. It's great to be here with Reverend Richard Copeland of First Baptist Church in DeSoto. In fact, we're sitting in this beautiful welcome area, getting ready to have a conversation. And I know a couple of weeks ago, reached out to Richard just to kind of talk about the state of things. We've been dealing with this now for several weeks, whether it's called pandemic 2020, COVID-19 2020, and it certainly has forced a lot of us, I'm thinking in terms of churches, to kind of rethink how we do church, what are the ways forward, and I thought it would be great to have a conversation. So, Richard, thank you so much. I know I first met you 6 years ago when I moved into town, and a lot of folks are like, oh, make sure you take time to at least say hello to Richard and Marietta, and it's just been a blessing. I know sometimes Methodists and Baptists, well, we do get along. I'll just say that.
Definitely. We had our first meeting.
We did. Yes.
At McDonald's.
Yes.
We met at McDonald's.
Yes, that was really nice. So.
And our first conversation concerning all of this, our last service here in the sanctuary was March 8th. Mm-hmm. And so he and I visited that week, deciding, what should we do with all of our uncertainty? And both of us said, well, we never close church unless it's a snowstorm or something like that. And we weren't sure what to do.
Yeah. And I know initially we had just I put on our church sign, hey, we're going to go online March 15th and March 22nd. So join us on Facebook. But here we are in the middle of May, still kind of working through all of that. So
looks like it'll go on for quite a while, really.
Yeah. And so I just wanted to ask, what has the Baptist Church been doing since this all has started?
Okay, luckily, there's a member of our church named Aaron Brownell who has expertise in all of this. Our other man who was doing the screens and everything, he's really vulnerable with some health issues and age-wise. But Aaron called and said, if you want to, we'll do this online. And thank God we've been doing it online once a week. And and people seem to have really enjoyed it, been impressed by it. And the good thing is, it's kind of different, and I'm sure it's true of your church, and I know other churches have mentioned this. You pick up a lot of people that aren't part of your church. Mm-hmm. And then some, of course, from a distance that were related to the church in some way.
And now, do you pre-record and then upload on Sunday morning?
We pre-record basically on a Thursday and have all the participants come in then and do their segment. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we come in at different times, but then Aaron is able, like you do with yours, to put it together.
Right. And so that means on Sunday morning, you get to enjoy coffee and
stay in bed.
You can enjoy worship in your PJs.
Yeah.
I know I've had any number of people say, hey, one of the things I've really liked is I can just sit in my PJs and drink my coffee. Or if it's later in the day that I don't get to worship, that is what we're able to do. Yeah.
And ours actually, Aaron puts it on sometime around Saturday evening and leaves it on the whole next week.
Oh, nice.
So any time that they can have the time. Worship.
Yeah. So with all of that, what kind of new things do you think has been, or how do you think people are experiencing it for your congregation?
I think they're doing the best they can to accept what's going on, but I think the thing that people have mentioned that they miss the most is, the worship, but that includes the fellowship.
Yeah.
Just being with the members of the church, fellowshipping together. I know I missed it the first Sunday. I said, I really kind of miss seeing everybody. A few weeks later, it was really hitting me. I mean, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the first couple of weeks, not that it was anything we wanted to do, but there was, for me, a bit of a novelty to it. Oh, this is interesting. What can we do? We kind of what we're doing at the Methodist Church is we do a Facebook Live at 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings. A pretty simple, we call it Simple Church. And it's myself and our children and youth coordinator, Sabrina Wellman, just kind of doing prayer and scripture and children's time and worship. And it was like, oh, well, this is unique. But then, by the third and fourth week, you really just are really missing people.
Oh, yes.
And the interactions and, the routine of Sunday morning, the flow that happens and the people you see at this time of day, then the ones who come in a few minutes late and then just kind of the joy of worship from congregational singing to choir to prayer and seeing all the kids and things like that.
Somebody asked me once what my favorite day of the week was, and I said Sunday, because of all that you're mentioning, fellowship, being with your members of the church, your church family.
Yeah.
So, that's
And as we think about, as we continue down this path, kind of what are you looking at as a congregational community in terms of what will the next steps and next phases be? Whether it's move to that in-person worship and things like that. What are some of the conversations you've been having around that?
Well, of course, you have some of the younger ones are real anxious, and they say, "When are we going to open up the church?" And then, of course, there's those that say, "Well, we won't be coming to church for a long time." And then when you hear, even I heard a religious leader say it'd probably be at least a year before you can really open up anywhere close to like we used to.
Yeah.
So you have those kinds of feelings among the people.
Yeah, there's, you have any number of folks with any number of concerns. One where people do just want to get back and see one another, but still kind of that cautious approach is necessary. We have an older congregation and we want to make sure that the safety of our most vulnerable remains the highest priority with this, as well as still the maintaining of that communal feel. What are some of the things that your church community is doing in the meantime to help kind of maintain that connection?
Well, kind of like what I think your church is doing. We have some Zoom meetings of young people. I know our women's Bible study group uses Zoom. Our men were under 10 in attendance, so we've met in our church basement and scattered out. But that's one good thing, and then we get some fellowship. So we've been doing that. I might mention Mrs. Karen Wall has been our vacation church school coordinator, and she puts on a kind of using vacation church school materials as kind of a help, of a resource. She has been doing a kind of a family devotions type thing that people can listen to and watch. Yeah, different things like that.
That's wonderful, because I know on Sunday mornings, Sabrina will, at 9 a.m., will do an all-ages Sunday school. And I think
that's good.
Yeah, folks have really responded to that.
And we do have an adult Sunday school class that Zooms.
Zoom, yeah. Should have bought stock in Zoom on March 8th, I guess. So even in the midst of all that we think about that goes into being the church, I think one of the things that I've been grateful for is the adaptability of people who are really thirsting for that community and the maintenance of that community. But I have found that, we are figuring it out. Sometimes we make mistakes and sometimes technology crashes or whatever, but I do get the sense that we are finding our path forward the best we can.
But don't you find with so much uncertainty and variations of as to what's going to happen, ifs, a lot of ifs.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do this if that works out, or if that works out. It's really challenging and difficult to know. What to do.
Yeah, we talked about a little beforehand, just all the variables involved.
Variables.
And when they shift daily, it seems like it's hard to disseminate or at least get all the information, best information available in the moment to make the best decisions. And yeah, scheduling anything is next to impossible, I think. And then knowing that, boy, what was right today might not be right tomorrow.
True.
And
True.
I think with all of that uncertainty, it does kind of create those levels of anxiety. I know the economy continues to bring about just that high anxiety that so many people and families are experiencing, and I try to make sure that the church still is that community where people can kind of name those anxieties, live into the grief that people are experiencing right now, because this is something that is inducing a lot of emotions and feelings, and it's okay to admit, I think, that it's a grieving to the way once things were, but I do believe that we can, if we stay strengthened in community, through church, through connecting, in the power of the Holy Spirit, that we can experience something new, but we still need to make sure we're taking care of folks that we need to take care of with that.
I think one of the good things I think that comes out of it is it can strengthen our faith, to see how important faith is.
Yeah.
And some of the theological precepts that we emphasize in our churches, that God is in control, God is love, and that God is going to work us through this, that nothing can separate us from His love, all of these kind of things. And I read where 35% of Christians feel they have grown in their faith, so we do grow.
Yeah.
Another good thing too, I think our church has decided, of the few that have discussed it, that even when we do get back into the open congregation coming to church, that we will continue to do the streamlining of our morning worship service so that others can be a part of it. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, we certainly having that conversation as well. Just part of it, I think, is just going to be the reality of life now. Is always have that capability, but then people can always have access to their church community in ways that even 10, 15, 20 years ago was never imagined. Again, you add a layer of technology, and that's another layer of stuff you have to deal with. But I do think it can bear a lot of really good fruit when there's a commitment by that congregational community to say, no, this is how we're going to do things. Had a pastor colleague just say, in the midst of all this uncertainty, and recognizing that this is not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but that the church can demonstrate its both flexibility and adaptability, as well as its continued building of relationships. One thing that I've seen when another church or some of our stuff we've put online, we will get folks respond who maybe never had even heard a hymn before or something like that, or like, hey, my cousin goes to church there, I'm up in Maine, and things.
That's
like
true.
It was fun to listen to her play the organ and stuff like that. So it's I do like the connectability of it, and
that type of connectability we didn't have.
Yeah.
We're losing the other type. It's hard to keep us connected with our people. We use, email, the phone, newsletter, things such as that to try to keep connected as best we can.
Well, being able to, I really am missing just seeing people.
Oh, yeah.
And just, pulling up on a Sunday morning and seeing the folks who are ready to worship and ready to sing. I know there's still a lot of details to work through and a lot of things to think about. Now, as you think about, at some point, I do trust we will be worshiping in person. I have no idea what that time frame looks like. What are some things you're considering right now for what that will look like, and what are some of the issues you're
Well,
thinking about?
Again, there's variables
Mhm.
that come into play. Looking at our own sanctuary, if we do the distance thing, which seems like it would still be going on probably, just like now, some of those phases, opening up to a certain amount of people. What is it, 10 now? You have to have under 10, and I think it goes up, I forget the next phase, and then 90, I think is the third phase. But we figured only about 60 people probably could fit into our sanctuary,
Right.
which is about 60% of our congregation. It's usually here on a Sunday morning on the average.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how do we go about that? What about the hymnals? We have to look at that issue. Do you take the hymnals out because they'd have to be cleaned and cleansed after every service? In fact, we've thought about, well, we just talked about different things, 2 services maybe, but then everything has to be cleansed between the 2 services probably. You can't have greeters like they used to do. They have to stand back to greet people. What about passing the offering plate?
Right.
How do you do communion? In our church, I'd even thought at one point, because of course we baptize by immersion, I thought, well, we could do that. We have some candidates. I thought, well, we can go ahead and do that. And it'd be neat online to see that. But then I thought, but then I'd be way too close to them. So, I don't know, there's just a lot of issues like that that we've considered.
Yeah, it is interesting to think through all the details, because whenever you think of one thing, and then there comes all the layered complexity of all the other things that go, okay, if you do it this way, but then you have to think about this. Our colleagues have been talking about, okay, do you have the restrooms open? Do you serve coffee? I can't imagine church without coffee, at least without the smell of it. You may just have to brew coffee just to have the smell there. And then, you also think of the financial commitments to where folks who are experiencing those financial hardships, ensuring that we're all still feel welcomed into this community, knowing that we're all at different places with where we are with our economic situations.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Could you still have a choir?
Yeah.
And what about the children's ministry? How do you keep them separated in small rooms? Even Vacation Church School.
Yeah.
Usually we have a lot of, like the Methodists do too, you have a lot of other kids come in.
Yeah.
And so, wow, how do you keep them separated? Which I really have sympathy for the schools. Because look at their job compared to ours, trying to figure things out.
Right, and again, I have 2 children at home who we've been doing the school from home, and again, we had a great appreciation for teachers before this happened, and now, it's only skyrocketed, and I know that they have some difficult decisions in the road ahead, and I just hope and pray again because I know it's hard to always know if you're making the right decision.
Oh, yes.
And as a church community, it's hard to, okay, are we doing the right thing? I think putting our faith and trust in both God and in the people helping make those decisions is very important, but I know there's that level of always uncertainty with it. Things like that. So, I do have a question as we think about, we touched on this a little bit earlier, with all the upheaval that we're experiencing. Where do you think are those moments of good that are happening, and what do you see could happen on the other side of this? I know maybe it's hard to conceive of as we live in the midst of this, but where are you experiencing? Methodist, we always point to grace, kind of the God's grace in the midst of this happening. How do you experience that?
Well, I think I did mention earlier, I think people have their faith challenged, and so it can grow. That would be one of the things. I really think people have a greater appreciation for the church, that are involved in the church. Like you said, the fellowship, the worship, even the committees they're on and so forth. I think they have a really greater appreciation, and especially if and when we can open back up. I think especially the first Sunday our church would be packed.
Right.
Now it might be like after 9/11 or something.
Right.
Where it was really, good church attendance for a while. But still, it brings up the importance of the church in our society, in our communities. Yeah, so that'd be part of it, I think.
Yeah, I've grown more appreciative of all the various faith communities that continue to work hard in the midst of this, and even doubly so as they seek ways to adapt while also maintain that missional identity and focus with who we are as people of God and people of faith, and keep letting folks know that, hey, our buildings are closed, but the church is still open. It's still going and still running.
A concern, though, that we have, and I know you do too, we have what's called Bethel Neighborhood Center, a mission station in Kansas City, and you have Crosslines,
yes,
which is a similar ministry. And that's just to mention too, you have all kinds of mission work, as we do too, overseas, and home mission and international missions. But wow, that's going to be hard to keep up financially with those places to keep that ministry going, and that's a deep concern too.
Yeah, I think about all the different organizations that are working hard to alleviate some of the stress and the pain, and allow folks access to the necessary resources they need, from food to shelter to clothing to money, and I recognize that, again, this is not an easy time, and I'm so appreciative of folks who can step up and step in any way possible, even if it's something as simple as donating a can of food to whatever is necessary.
Even like right now, on Sunday mornings, people bring food for our own food pantry. They're not going to be doing that, so we hope we can encourage people financially to back the food pantry, and then the, what's it called, DeSoto Food Relief.
The one DeSoto Relief Fund.
That people can help support that.
And I'll just do a quick rundown of that. We do have in DeSoto available the One DeSoto Relief Fund for folks who've been greatly affected by the downturn in the economy due to the pandemic. We're ready to give resources. We do have funds available, if it's something as simple as for rent or the electric bill or food or medical bills and things like that. It's through the DeSoto Food Pantry. It's an application you can fill out, and it is an opportunity to help alleviate some of the stress that's being felt. And the community really is stepping up. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because there are ways too to continue to serve and give and help one another. Right now, when Jesus talks about what it is to be that neighbor, this is that opportunity. Or this is one of those ways we can say, this is how we're being neighborly to one another.
And those applications can be picked up at the banks. At least two of the banks, or three, I'm not sure. Great American and Great Southern. And I don't know if
and I think they have it at the pharmacy as well. I know we've got it at the church. You can always connect with the church and make sure you get an application. And I do see strength in the community. I know there's a lot of, sometimes it's hard to look through all the, I don't want to say angry voices, but just kind of the dissenting voices, or just, come on out of anxiety, who are ready to, we've got to move forward. But I know for the most part, we're all trying to do the best we can, and we want to serve one another, and we want people to be healthy, and we want to do what's right. And I'm just grateful for your church community and all that you've done and will continue to do in
I
our
think
community.
Part of our responsibility as members of churches is to be aware of, like you said, neighbors, but to be aware of people that may not really know where to get help.
Right.
And if you know a neighbor that's out of work And you especially have people that have never been in that situation
Yeah.
before, and they're kind of very hesitant.
Right.
And to see that they get that help, and I suppose for you and me to try to keep before the people what the needs might be, if they need more monetary help through this one food relief program and so forth. Yeah, I don't know, just so many responsibilities.
Right.
In the midst of all of this for churches. Yeah.
And we're ready to step up and step in and show that we're ready. It doesn't matter who you are.
And our people, and your people too, Christian people are ready to help.
Yeah.
You really sense that among the people.
Yeah. Richard, do you have any questions for me, or I'm saying just grilling you to this is in 60 minutes here.
Well, I appreciate you initiating this.
Yeah.
And giving us a choice of whether it's a Methodist church or here. And I said, well, I better get him over here in this Baptist church. And but we've through the years have worked well together, the two churches.
Oh, yeah.
And when I get the opportunity, many of the Methodist folk have been a real source of encouragement to me, and especially when I came here as a young pastor over 50 years ago. I was young.
Oh, that wasn't too long ago, was it?
But there were some of the Methodist people that really, they encouraged me.
Oh, good.
Not being in this church, but that really made a difference, especially when it was mature men that were church men in your church.
Right.
And would compliment our church and so forth. So it's been a great relationship, that's for sure.
Well, I know, and you have so many wonderful relationships in the community. And as we mentioned, you reached out with me when I first got here, and we were able to share a cup of coffee together. And we just intersect. We usually see each other at the store on occasion and things like that. And I think between all the faith communities in DeSoto, there's always something going on and something happening and people doing great things. But I think in a couple of months we need to get back together. We can meet at the Methodist Church and just kind of check in like as we head into fall to see where we are. So let's plan on doing that.
And let's hope that things look a lot better.
Yeah, we'll have maybe a clear path forward with all of that. So.
That's another one of those variables.
Yeah.
We might be in deeper kind of situation crisis-wise, or we don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll continue to serving the community and be in communication with one another, reaching out to our neighbors, and just continue to do the work and to be these communities of grace, even though a lot of it's online, but we're still being the church.
And go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say thank you again, Richard.
Really I was going to say, I think both of our denominations are very similar, and we're both very fortunate that our hierarchy and those that are higher up have been giving very good sense of guidance and help.
Yeah,
we can really rely on it.
It's been good to be able to lean into the hierarchy. I know sometimes we perhaps are resistant to, they're sending us this stuff.
Right.
No, this has been very nice to have some guidance and to have folks. The strength in the denomination has been really
And
good.
we appreciate the support of the people in what we're doing.
Yes.
Because it's much more of a challenge than I've ever faced as a pastor. Yeah. It's all new and in a sense more difficult, in a sense more, like I said, more challenging.
Right.
So I know for you.
We'll just keep swimming upstream.
Plugging away.
Yeah, plugging away, showing up every day. So all right. Well, I will take some time too to watch your worship. That has been so much fun.
I've watched yours.
Oh, nice.
The first time we checked into yours, it was kind of funny. It was DeSoto, Texas. But we thought, we didn't know. So we were looking at it, and I said, well, that doesn't look like the front of our church. That must be something new. And Mary said, no, I think it was that way. And then these girls came dancing down the aisle for something, which is okay. And then all of a sudden there was like not one minister, but about four back there with their robes on. And I said, that just doesn't seem right. It was different, totally different. Yeah,
there's Methodist, and then there's Texas Methodist. Well, that's a whole separate.
Well, it had to be a much larger.
DeSoto, Texas. like when you go on Facebook, you got to do the space between the E and the S for DeSoto United Methodist
Oh, yeah.
Church. And then,
Yes.
Yeah, that space is key to finding. So, but I need to backtrack. I did watch. I really enjoyed Easter. And who's the trumpet player?
That's Jeff Hodges.
Okay.
Our son.
Yeah. And it's just like, oh my God, it's just so beautiful. And that was great. We're learning to do church in new and exciting ways, hybrid church and all of that. So
I wish I had more time to watch more services of other churches, but just to get your own.
Yeah. Oh, I know it's enough to get your own in. So.
But I have read, and I think it's probably true, that whether you're a large church like Church of the Resurrection, or like the size of our church, that we can all grow, but in different ways.
Right.
I mean, Church of the Resurrection, I mean, what I read is that probably larger churches will break up on more smaller groups, which can be a closer tie.
Right.
But even in our churches, I think, like we are, everybody's going to grow closer in the long run because you desire and crave for that.
Yeah, you want to be connected. And
you were saying, So, I
so
appreciate you coming over to this church.
Yeah, thank you. It's cute. This is such a beautiful space, and when we do open up, I just encourage folks to stop in and before worship and take some time to look at this beautiful glass and rummage through your office, right? Or do you keep the doors closed during the church? So, well, thanks again, Richard.
Well, thank you.
This is great.
Thank you.
Like I said, we're going to get. I'm going to make us get back together in a couple of months and see where we are.
Maybe we'll know a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe. Or
and what I'll do is ask you questions. You have all the answers.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it'll be that.
Methodists have a method.
Right. Yeah. Very, very methodical. So.